A landlord is looking for answers after the police demolished his home during a standoff with a man who wasn't even a tenant. And in Florida, a man stole a home from two different property owners. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have a couple of interesting articles for you today, and honestly, it's one of those slow news days, so I'm bringing you a couple of interesting stories that, I thought they really caught my attention. And one is going over the story of this landlord who had his home demolished during a police standoff, right? And so the police, they didn't tell him they were going to demolish this house, right? They just, they thought, oh, well, this is how we're going to get the suspect out of there. And oddly enough, the suspect didn't even live in the house. Okay, it was just somebody else who was in the house at the time. So, a landlord ends up with a completely destroyed property after all this nonsense. Now, I don't know what I would do in that sort of situation. It's crazy. Now, the second story I have is coming out of Florida, and it's about this scam artist who basically stole two houses using fake deeds, right? And this is a fear that a lot of landlords and a lot of property owners in general have, that, hey, there's these scam artists out there, and they're going to somehow be able to steal or fake or, commit some sort of fraud and steal the property away from us. So, I thought that story was quite interesting as well. So before I get into the articles, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know what you want to see on this channel, okay? So, slow news days, sometimes I bring you, a little bit different topics than what I normally bring, about the rent control, the Section 8 housing, the eviction nonsense that's going on. So, if you want to see more stories about what's going on with, landlords and weird little situations, I'll be glad to bring them to you as well. So let's get into these two stories. The first one, it's coming from wwmt.com, and it says, landlord looks for answers after home gets demolished in Kalamazoo standoff. And there's a video that goes with this, and so I'll play part of that video right now.
Look, 2 hours ago, you could still tell this was a home, although it was partly torn apart. Now it's mostly to the ground, completely demolished. Now, just 10 minutes ago, they started putting this metal fence up. They look like they're close to being done, if not done already, with putting that up and barricading off that damage. The owner of the home says he drew a map for police, thinking officers would maybe break down a door and go in, but not take down part of the structure. The homeowner tells me he was renting this property to a woman with children. Police say people were inside when the man, who does not live here, entered the house yesterday morning.
Okay, you saw that video, and wow, this is an insane story. But anyway, let's get into the article. The owner of a home on Washington Avenue is looking for answers from Kalamazoo police after his home was demolished during a 2-day standoff that ended Tuesday. Gary Apps, owner, said Kalamazoo police contacted him Monday afternoon to draw a map of home's interior layout. He said he thought the map would be used to enter the home and remove 35-year-old Alex Rawls, who was barricaded inside and shooting at police. Instead, the home was demolished. Police said the demolition, along with deploying tear gas, were part of their efforts to remove Rawls from the home. I understand what they were doing. They wanted to make sure if someone went in there, they had a floor plan, but I guess I never envisioned this. I envisioned a front door being kicked down. Maybe the back door, but not this, App said. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a standoff that led to an entire home being demolished. I've seen houses completely torn apart, just trashed beyond belief, but the whole house being demolished, that is insane, okay? So for those who watch my videos and might not know, I am a law enforcement officer, and I have been involved in standoffs before in the past, right? And, crazy situations have occurred. So I know a little bit more about this sort of thing than the average person, and I just don't see what situation would entail, getting heavy equipment and ripping an entire house down. Okay, that doesn't make sense to me. But I'm not gonna say that the police were in the wrong. I'm just gonna say, hey, this is a very, very different situation than anything that I've ever dealt with. Apps said he was renting the property to a woman with children. Police said people were inside the home when Rawls, who does not live there, entered the house Monday morning. Police said the people got out of the home shortly after officers arrived. They were unharmed. Neighbors sent photos of the demolished home to Apps. Apps said police did not tell him before they ripped into the home. I'm hard-pressed to believe that's rebuildable. Looks like a hurricane hit it, he said. Apps said police told him they would pay for the damages. Well, at least the police are paying for the damages, but, I mean, come on here, man. I mean, okay, so all of the residents of the home were able to get out before the man ran inside. And so the police were like, hey, we got to get this guy out of the house. And, 2-day standoff, that's a very, very long standoff. It's hard to believe, though, that they wouldn't at some point say, hey, let's send in, the tactical team to go get this guy. And, instead of, hey, let's get a back or a excavator and just rip the entire house down, or a bulldozer, or just mow it over, or whatever they did. It's insane, okay? Crazy story coming out of Kalamazoo, Michigan. But that leads me over into my second story, and it's coming out of Florida, and it has to do with this scammer, right? And it's coming from clickorlando.com, and it says, Florida man accused of using fake deeds to take ownership of 2 homes. Okay, so let's get into it. A Volusia County man accused of fraudulently taking ownership of 2 homes using fake deeds sought the services of multiple notaries as part of the scheme, newly released court records show. Javon Walden, 36, is facing an organized scheme to defraud charge, a first-degree felony punishable by up to 30 years in prison, and has pleaded not guilty. According to prosecutors, Walden used fraudulent quitclaim deeds to make it appear as though the original property owners had transferred ownership of the homes to him. In both cases, the original property owners were dead at the time the deeds were notarized, court records show. So, obviously, there's something a little fishy going on right here. When you get a document like a quitclaim deed notarized, hey, both parties have to be present, and you need to be showing the notary your identification to verify that it's the correct person, okay? So, I don't know if the notaries were in on this, if this guy was paying these notaries off, or, what the story is, but something is not right, okay? And this is kind of scary for the landlords out there and the property owners out there, I mean, this kind of scam, it apparently worked for this guy. He did get caught, fortunately, but how many times had he done it before? Who knows? One of the notaries later told investigators she did not understand how a quitclaim deed worked. She certified the legal documents despite the deceased property owner not being present for the signing, according to the court documents. Another notary told investigators that while meeting up with Walden and his associate for a deed signing, one of the men may have secretly used her notary rubber stamp seal without her knowledge after she refused to notarize a questionable quitclaim deed. Yeah, well, that sounds like complete garbage, okay? I think both of these notaries are lying because they're caught and they don't want to be involved in this, scheme where this, guy is possibly going to get 30 years in prison. The first notary is like, oh, I just didn't understand how a quitclaim deed works. Yeah, well, you had to go through the notary classes. And so, I actually I looked up, all of the things required in order to become a notary public here in the state of Nebraska, right? And so they sent me all the educational materials and everything. I never actually became a notary public, but I did look up and I read and, did the research. I might do that at some point in the future, right? But the thing is, there's rules you have to follow, and some of those rules are, hey, you verify the IDs of the people that you're, it's pretty basic. It's pretty basic. So I think she's just straight lying. And the same with the second one. Well, maybe they got my stamp without my knowledge. Like, what were you? Oh, I need to go use the bathroom, and you just left your stamp laying there, and they just were stamping docs, and then no. You're full of crap, okay? you're caught, and this, you're trying to avoid going to prison, so you're telling a straight lie. The guy probably paid you a little bit of cash, a few $100 just so you would just rubber stamp it. You thought, oh, nothing bad will come of it, and now you're caught up in this nonsense. Prosecutors said Walden later sold one of the fraudulently obtained homes for $70,000. He was unable to profit off the second home because an heir to that property discovered the scheme and stopped it, court records show. To combat fraud, many Central Florida counties have established free alerts that notify citizens when an official record, such as a deed or mortgage, is documented under their name. Property fraud alerts are available in Flagler, Lake, Orange, Osceola, Polk, Seminole, Sumter, and Volusia counties. Yeah, and I never heard of that, but that actually is a pretty good thing. Property fraud alerts. I'll look it up and see, if they actually have something like that here in Nebraska or in Missouri, where I also invest. Because, that kind of alert would be very useful. Now, I've heard of certain services being provided. They cost a lot of money, or they cost, recurring fees, monthly fees that basically will check your property title, make sure that your title isn't being stolen. But hey, at the same time, there should be some way to make sure that this sort of thing doesn't happen with corrupt notaries, or even if they weren't corrupt, they were 100% negligent and should have their notary licensures stripped away because they don't know what they're doing, and they basically cost people their homes because they failed at doing their job correctly. So I hope this guy, he gets prosecuted. I hope he gets 30 years because he's a piece of crap in my opinion. And stealing something as big as a house is absolutely horrible.